Hello everybody, I'm Zenith, and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Kat Mac and I talk about Disney products and Disney in general. Guess what, guys? Today is the 25th episode of the Disney Debate. And yay! And because of that, we wanted to really give you something new, something special that we hadn't done, something not in our normal canon and not really a Disney film. We were going to do something else today, but we're going to save that for the 50th episode if we have a chance to get together. But today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite video games of all time, Kingdom Hearts.
And mine too.
I absolutely love this series. I played through Kingdom Hearts 1, 2. I played a little bit of Chain of Memories. I've been 358 over 2 days, and I have Birth by Sleep, but I haven't gotten that far in it. But I'm a huge fan of Kingdom Hearts, and I really love what the series does. But before we really delve into this, Kat, what was your first impression of Kingdom Hearts, like, as a kid?
Well, first off, I just want to make it clear that I'm not a gamer. Because, I grew up with a Sega Genesis, and but the only game I played was Sonic, and the only console I got beyond that was PlayStation 2. So, my source of gaming and, general skill is rather lacking. Like, I consider myself more a casual gamer than anything. But with Kingdom Hearts, the first time I ever saw it was actually a sort of a commercial for a video I was watching. I forgot which movie it was, but I saw it was like a teaser thing for Kingdom Hearts, and usually I ignore that stuff, but I noticed that you basically play a character that goes to all these different Disney worlds, and I'm like, whoa, I haven't done that yet. So next time I was in Toys R Us, I went through the gaming section and I found it, and I'm thinking, you know what? It has Disney in it. I'll give it a shot. And I spent a good week locked up in my room just playing that game, and I was totally obsessed with it. And when it was over, I'm like, more. So I love this game too. I totally love it. And I bought the sequel when it came out, and I love that even more. I must have spent 2 weeks away from my classes in college just playing through the entire thing.
My experience with the series is I used to be a very casual gamer. I had a few PlayStation games here and there, but I kind of just did it for fun, Mm-hmm. But then I saw this trailer for Kingdom Hearts, and this trailer had the opening theme song in it, which we're going to touch on it a little bit later down the line, but it used the opening theme song, it showed us the worlds, and it was just so epic. It felt so big, such a massive thing, and I was already a fan of Disney at the time, and I'm just like, alright, Final Fantasy meets Disney. It seemed like a match made in heaven for me, especially at the time. And so I'm just like, okay, I don't have a PlayStation 2, but for Christmas, it was 2000 or 2002, and I was just like, please, just, I don't care about anything else for Christmas. Just get me a PS2 and Kingdom Hearts, and I'll be set. I will be set for life. And I picked that up, and I fell in love with it. I remember it blew me away because up until that point, I hadn't seen a lot of voice acting in video games, and then I popped it in, and automatically, everyone was talking. It seemed like such a new development for video games for me at the time. And I fell in love with the unique worlds and the characters. I got Kingdom Hearts 2 a few weeks after it came out, and I love that too. But we may talk about more Kingdom Hearts stuff later down the line. Today is about the first game, the one that started it all, and it does so many things right. It takes the best parts of a Final Fantasy game, like a serious Final Fantasy game, and the best parts of a kid-friendly Disney flick, and it merges them together, and it manages to be both lighthearted and deep and really heartfelt at times, and it really balances these emotions well.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't play many games, but when I played this, like, I suddenly got why people loved gaming so much. Because before then, I always thought that, like, games, like, while, they were enjoyable, were kind of a waste of time, and I never really got into anything. In fact, I never even heard of Final Fantasy before I played this game. So all these characters and their backgrounds were, completely non-existent to me. Like, to me, I thought that these were characters created for the game, and then I realized, oh wait, there's this whole entire series based on them. And after, playing it, I did some research, and I, watched my friends play a bunch of Final Fantasy games, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Why didn't I hear about this sooner?
Yeah, this is the game that really turned me into a hardcore gamer, I would say. Because, I mean, up until that point, I had played Final Fantasy IX, but there really, and I really enjoyed it, but there wasn't really something that, made me really want to go out and buy games, especially because I didn't have a job and I didn't have the money to do so. But really, once I got this game and then I got Final Fantasy X that same Christmas, like, I just started seeing what gaming was capable of. And it just, they had such a big influence on me as a child. So, I guess we should start off with, like, talking about what Kingdom Hearts really is. What exactly Kingdom Hearts is in terms of the story, I guess.
To me, I always saw Kingdom Hearts as sort of, a common ground where both young kids and adults, can meet on a certain level, and, they could coexist, peacefully, because the kids have, the characters that they're growing up with, characters that they recognize, but at the same time they're exposed to more mature themes, not too mature, but more adult storylines, and they have more, and they have a game that's a little bit more hardcore as opposed to like a simple side scrollers or a point and click. And then adults with this, they have all that, they have the challenging game aspect, the RPG, and the badass sword fighting and characters, but at the same time they also have the cartoon characters that they grew up with. It's sort of like a nostalgia thing for them. So like I said, it's a pretty good ground for like all gamers to get involved with.
Like, anyone who likes Disney will be like, oh my god, there's this guy called Sora, and he's going around into these Disney worlds, and oh my god, it's Aladdin, and it's very nostalgic for those reasons, especially for kids who are watching a lot of Disney products at the time, Disney movies. And then for the older crowd, they're like, oh, there's this, there's a really big war, there's something happening, and it's destroying all these worlds, and we have to save the world. And it's so dark and edgy at times. The very opening bit of the game, it's told, like, you have this amazing theme song, it brings you in, and it's a sequence called Dive to the Heart, where you go down and you're on like a bunch of platforms, and on the platforms are, pictures of Snow White and Cinderella and stuff like that, and you're wondering, like, what is this? Like, where am I? And it's a nice tutorial, but it really does have kind of a deeper level to it. Like I said, the level is called Dive to the Heart, and at the end you fight this thing that it's your shadow. It grows larger, and it grows into this giant like thing called a dark side. And the way I interpret this scene is that you're fighting an internal battle with the darkness in your heart. And there's a lot of this really symbolic meaning to the game that director Tetsuya Nomura really put into the game. There's so many different deep themes that are crammed into it, and you're really not beaten over the head with them. It's really up to you to interpret them.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's not like one of those, morality games where you have the option of choosing between good and evil. Ultimately, the path, you take really does leads you toward good. But at the same time, you know, it does make you question yourself and the motives of the characters around you. Because, of course, you know, the big theme of this is hearts. You know, hearts and how they can be corrupted by darkness, how they can be redeemed by light, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
how hearts can link friends who are separated across different worlds, even.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a way, this is kind of like, the theme is kind of like love and friendship, when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And it may sound a bit corny to say friendship, but really, it really does delve into the bonds that you create with people. Not just friendship, but to link to One Piece, it's nakama, which is a Japanese term which really means something of more than a comrade, almost like a familial tie, but not by blood. And that's what really this delves into. The people that you see in this game, they're really, really close friends. And you can see that from the very beginning. But they're torn apart by different circumstances. And you can see the bonds that they have, even when some people choose the wrong path. You know, you want to see them go back on the right side. And it really delves into that.
And it has shown that, you know, following your heart, in this sense, is taken literally. Because Sora manages to make friends in pretty much every world that he goes on. And because he lets those people into his heart, he's able to find those people later on in the game. But particularly those that are, you know, closest to him, like Riku and Kairi.
And because he does, like, open his heart to them, they open their hearts to him, and they support him. They use their strength to help him, not just in a physical sense, but in a spiritual sense. And, you know, they're always with him. There's a part later on in the game where you don't have anyone of your friends around you, but because of that unbreakable bond, that, you know, this unspoken bond between people, he's able to have the strength to win.
Mm-hmm. That's the power of love.
Like I said, it may seem a bit corny, but really the way they go about it in this game is simply brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's delve into the characters. We'll go a little bit more into the story a little bit later. But the main character is called Sora, which there's a reason they have these names. I'm pretty sure Sora is like a Japanese equivalent of air, I believe.
Sora actually means bird.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that really confused me with Sora was I originally thought Sora was a girl. And
really?
And my reasoning for this is because I grew up with Digimon, and they have a character in there named Sora, who's a girl. And in fact, if you look up the name online, Sora is supposed to be a girl's name. Hence why I was really confused that they would name a guy Sora.
I think it's for the thematic implications that the name has. Sora is he's a very open character. He speaks his mind, he's carefree, but he's always looking to the horizon. He wants to see new worlds. He wants to see everything out there. He's all really about freedom and about, you know, seeking new adventures and setting his course for new experiences. And in that case, he is like the bird. He is like the air element that, you know, that theme is about him.
Yeah, but that's not to say he can't also be, you know, immature, cocky, and a little obnoxious. 'Cause, you know,
in fact, you know, there are points where he does the wrong thing, and that's something that we want to see. Because he does something, you know, very childish, because he is in character, he is pretty young. He does some childish things, but he learns from his mistakes. And it's these things that set him on the right path. He fails to save one of his friends in the beginning of the game, and so he's constantly searching for her. And when he sees Riku, who's another character we'll talk about in a bit, again, he realizes that he kind of failed his best friend as well. It's these failures, these things that really change him and make him be a better character, make him a better protagonist and a hero at the end of the game.
And actually, a rather interesting tidbit, back when they were first developing this game, and they wanted to sort of primarily make it Disney, they were just going to have Mickey be the lead role. And in fact, Sora's outfit was designed for Mickey. But then the creators, when they decided they wanted to aim for an older audience, they figured the older audience members wouldn't be able to identify that much playing as Mickey because, he's Mickey Mouse. He really doesn't have that much of a personality, and, you basically feel like you're just moving Mickey. But in the case of Sora, this is a brand new character, one who has both good and bad traits, but at the same time, you could put yourself in his shoes and feel like you're the one fighting.
His very large shoes, I might add.
Yes, his clown shoes.
And so, like, Sora is somewhat of an everyman, but he's also the kind of reluctant hero. He wants to go out and see new worlds, but when he's faced with the danger, he starts to think, okay, what have I gotten myself into? But he ultimately pulls himself out of the darkness and, stands up tall, and he becomes the hero that you want him to be. And I really loved his story arc about how it was a lot about maturity, a lot about growing up. Many things he sees in his journey are life lessons that he needs to hear about love, about bonds, about friendship, and about responsibility and dedication to a cause. There are times where he doesn't want to be this hero, but he has to, because if not, the world is going to be destroyed. Well, not just the world, all worlds will be destroyed, and so it's up to him.
Yeah, it's also worth it to note that his voice actor is, I believe at this point, a teenage Haley Joel Osment.
Yes.
And I thought he did a pretty good job.
I thought it was pretty good. I think at times the dialogue is a little bit stilted in the beginning, but I think he grows into the role, much like the character grows into the hero role at the end of the game. And so it may be a little bit jarring in the first, stage to hear him talk, but really afterwards he really gets into his role, and I think he develops somewhat of an affinity towards the character.
Yeah, because like I said, Sora is a very relatable and sympathetic character. Because, he's that young boy that, ultimately wants to do good and, help his friends and fight the bad guys. And that's what he is. And
another aspect that we should talk about with Sora is in the very first level or first world of the game, something happens. I don't want to spoil it because, it's a really big part of the game. But his island is attacked by something, and he gets this weapon called the Keyblade. And from the very beginning, it's not something he acquires. It's not something that he finds. It appears to him. He appears holding the Keyblade, and so the Keyblade has chosen him to save the world. And one thing this game constantly brings up is the fact that the one who wields the Keyblade has the power to either save the world or destroy it. And so it's a weapon of untold power, but what we know about it is that it changes to reflect the heart of the person who wields it. As you go through each world, the Keyblade can change form and shape depending on which keychain you have. And the way I take it is the keychain is a symbol of the bonds that you created in that world. So the Keyblade will take on a different form for the hearts and people that you met in each world.
Yeah, but the thing that, that I personally wish they had done was, give the new Keyblades at the beginning of the world, so they kind of fit in with the theme of it. Because usually you don't get the new keychain till you beat the final boss.
It might have been better in the middle, but I think the symbolism of that, the thematic elements of that was that, okay, we've made all these bonds, now you get the keychain. It doesn't really fit in with the gameplay aspect, but it makes sense in thematic aspect.
I guess so. I also wanted to point out that that at one point during the character design and designing the weapon for Sora, his original weapon was supposed to resemble a chainsaw. But of course Disney said no.
You know, a key may seem a little bit ridiculous, but man, who can say that they beat up someone with a giant key? This is the only time in a video game I've ever heard of someone wielding a gigantic key sword.
Yeah, especially since I've talked to cosplayers who've cosplayed as Sora and other characters that also have keyblades, and they say that those keyblades are very hard to wield just because of their awkward handle. So, props to Sora for being able to figure it out.
Now, the other character, the other really main character in this game is called Riku. And from the very beginning, it's somewhat obvious that he's going to be an antagonist of sorts. But he also goes through somewhat of a character arc. He's kind of the exact opposite of Sora in the fact that, yes, he does want to go on an adventure, he does want to see new sights and stuff like that. He's similar in that way, but at the same time, he embraces the dark side of his heart. And he's just like, if it can take me to new worlds, then so be it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to go see everything that's out there by any means necessary. And so he gives into the darkness, and he is taken in by the villains of the game. And he's used because of his mistakes. His first big mistake leads him on the wrong path. And so throughout the course of the game, you're trying to say, Riku, open your eyes. These people are using you, and even at the end of the game, you see that he's being used by another person that I won't spoil for anyone who hasn't played the game, but he's being used by a lot of different people. And the thing is, yes, it's good to seek new sights, and yes, it's good to want to go on these adventures, but if you do it the wrong way, if you try to do something the wrong way, then it'll backfire upon you. And Riku, he makes a mistake, and he has to pay for the mistake. And this continues throughout a lot of the series, is that Riku has to really redeem himself for a lot of the bad things he does in this game.
Yeah, to me, Riku was always a lot like Shadow from the Sonic series, or Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh!, in that he's kind of the darker, more brooding character that, acts all tough and doesn't want to, be friends with everyone, and, wants to prove he can do stuff on his own. But at the same time, that makes him extremely vulnerable, and he always gets taken advantage of by the bad guys. And there are times where he does seem a bit emo about it, which always annoyed me with characters like that. But at the same time, he's also very threatening in the fact that he fights just as good and sometimes even better than Sora. I can't.
He basically does the whole Star Wars thing. He gives into his rage.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I died fighting the last battle with him.
And he is somewhat sympathetic, though, in the fact that you can understand, he wants to do whatever it takes to save one of his friends, and he wants a lot of different things. He is very childish as well, and he's just like, we can do this if we do it the way I'm doing it. It'll be faster, it'll be much better, and we can use this newfound power to save everyone. And yet he doesn't realize that the power is controlling him. He's not controlling his own power.
Yeah, that did annoy me sometimes, because I had the feeling that, at the beginning, as soon as I saw him, I'm like, gee, I wonder if he's going to become an antagonist at some point. And then just to hear him, go on and on about, how worthless Sora is and everything, and how he's accomplishing nothing but, going around to all the worlds. I mean, yes, that's kind of true, but at the same time, he's, done a lot more and made way more connections than Riku has. So
the way I think of it is a different way of thinking, and he's just blind to the fact that Sora is doing the right thing, especially because he has Maleficent the mistress of all evil, whispering in his ear. And if anyone is going to sway someone to the dark side, it's Maleficent.
Hell yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, and in the fight with Maleficent, oh my god. It's a 2-part battle of sheer awesomeness. You fight her, and then you fight the dragon form. Dear God, I love this game.
So much death.
So those are the 2 main characters. There's some side characters you meet throughout the worlds.
We have the love interest, Kairi.
Kairi isn't really involved too much in the game, but she's the motivation. From the very beginning, she's kidnapped. You don't know by who, and you're trying to find her and rescue her. You go through every single world looking for Kairi or looking for King Mickey, because King Mickey is also missing. And so you slowly find out that, Kairi has been she's been staring you in the face all along, and you just didn't know it.
Sorry, Sora, your princess is on another world. That's pretty much what it is.
Eventually you do find her, and it's in one of my favorite worlds. You go to Peter Pan, or Neverland World, and speaking of which, we talked about Peter Pan last time, so tie-in, but yeah, that's one of the best worlds there. You get to fly, and the flying mechanic is actually really good. And the controls for it really work. Like, it's probably one of the best flying mechanics in a game at that point. And so you're able to go up and fly and everything, and then you fight Captain Hook on his ship, and he is really strong, but you can fly around him, and it's so much fun. Let's talk a little bit about the different worlds there are. We have Traverse Town, which is kind of hub world. It's where you meet a lot of the characters from Final Fantasy. You have Agrabah. You have Alice in Wonderland World. You have Tarzan, which was awesome because you get to vine swing and you get to slide on the trees and stuff, and that was fun.
You have the Hercules Coliseum,
where you get to fight different tournaments, and the tournaments are really fun. I liked them better in the first game myself.
And then you have Atlantica from The Little Mermaid, Halloween Town from Nightmare Before Christmas, yes. My favorite world, by the way. And ultimately it all leads up to this one world called Hollow Bastion.
Oh, you also forgot Monstro from Pinocchio.
Oh, dear God, that fucking whale.
He swallows your ship.
Oh my God, that fucking whale.
And so, yeah, it all leads up to Hollow Bastion, which is basically the remnants of all worlds. At first you think it's supposed to be the world of Beauty and the Beast, but it isn't. It's kind of the remnants of a bunch of different worlds that have been fused with steampunk to create this big, gigantic castle for the enemies.
I mean, later in the sequel, you learn what the world originally was, but for this game, this is kind of like the second to last stage in the game, and this is where all the big, important, mind-blowing shit happens.
This is where you fight Maleficent. This is where you fight Riku a couple times. Yeah, a couple times too. You meet Beast here, and he's a really great addition to the party. In every single world, you find a companion. Sometimes they aren't useful, sometimes they are, but Beast is really helpful in this world. You find out who exactly is behind all this in this world, and then afterwards, it goes crazy, batshit insane. You go to every single world again, briefly, and then you go to this void place where you fight Chernabog, who you might remember from Fantasia as the devil. And you fly again. And it is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing we should note about each world. I mean, depending on the world you go to, you actually do gain new abilities and sometimes new costumes and even a new body.
like in Halloween Town, you have really cool outfits. You really, both you, Donald, and Goofy, who are joining you on your adventure, you get different outfits based on the world. So Halloween Town, like Donald's a mummy and Goofy's, what is he, a zombie, I think?
I think so. I just know that all the costumes remind me of like stuff that you would see out of Hot Topic.
Yeah, and I wanted that Sora costume badly.
Yeah, and in the Atlantica, the Little Mermaid world, you actually become a sort of merman. I mean, I hesitate to call him a merman because I think his lower
He has
half...
a dolphin. He's half dolphin.
Yeah, he's like half dolphin, so I'm not quite sure what to call him.
And Donald becomes half squid or half octopus.
Mm-hmm.
And the only sane one is Goofy, who becomes a turtle. I'm like, the other designs are like, what?
Personally, I question the decision to make them those animals, especially Sora and Goofy, because true, they're sea creatures, but at the same time, they are also creatures that require air. And at no point in that game do you ever go to the surface.
Yeah.
So they could have easily drowned.
And Atlantica wasn't the best world. That was kind of the most frustrating for me because the swimming controls aren't as good as the flying controls.
Yeah, I agree. I had trouble at first when I started, but I eventually got used to it, especially once you get the dolphin kick move.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it just because
Dolphin punch.
I like it just because it's, it's different,
It is. There's always something different in each world, and they always try to do. They have unique boss encounters. They have unique things for you to do in each world, and each world reveals something new about the relationship between these worlds, why they're connected, or why they might not want to be connected. And they keep saying that the worlds are connected to the darkness. And you're constantly going around and you find these keyholes. And in order to stop these creatures called heartless, creatures who have lost their heart, they were once human, you have to stop the heartless from escaping through the keyholes, so you close them, and you have to defeat the heartless. And I think the biggest deep aspect of this game is the fact that you're really fighting people. These are people who were once real people who have lost their hearts and have become the monsters you see before you. So every time you kill someone, that was once a person. And there's one point in the game where you see what it's like to become a heartless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really weird and kind of hard to describe, and they actually go into it a lot more in Kingdom Hearts 2. But basically, you just have your sort of metaphysical heart taken out of your body, like the thing that makes you you, that is basically your soul and, encompasses all of your humanity, and you're basically left as nothing more than a shadow.
It's like without your heart, without your bonds and memories and stuff like that, you're kind of... Yeah. You're a zombie. You're a monster.
You're literally a shadow of your former self.
Which is how we get the name for the minor enemies of the game, the shadows.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that the further along in the game you go, the different kind of heartless you see. Because first you start off with like the normal, just, shadowy figures, but then you get ones that have armor, ones that have elemental powers, one that are like really big and huge, and others that are kind of warped, and others that can change shape or use like different kind of powers. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting, like you wonder, how does a person become a certain heartless? Is it just based on what world they're in, or based on how much darkness was in their heart? I mean, it's never really explained.
They do say that the stronger the heart, the bigger the enemy will become, when they turn to darkness. And you learn later that one of the most good people around, his name was Ansem, and he turned to the darkness. And another big part of the game is trying to find Ansem and trying to find, his journals to see what he learned, because he was the governor or the mayor of one of the worlds that some Final Fantasy characters were on. And so he was trying to study the darkness, and he ended up being swallowed by the darkness. And we don't know what happened to him, but, you know, throughout his notes we find out, you know, the stronger your heart, the worse you'll become when you're succumbed by the darkness.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like, you know, the real story of Anakin Skywalker, and that, you know, he joined the dark side in order to, like, learn more about it and defeat it, but then ultimately it ended up taking him over, and he became, like, the most powerful, as opposed to those who, like, originally started with the dark side.
And there were a lot more connections to Star Wars later on in the series. This isn't us, you know, making up connections. They took a lot from Star Wars to put into these games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, and some of the bad guys, I mean, well, you in this game, you have two genres of bad guys. You have the Heartless, which we talked about, and the many different shapes and levels that they become, and then you have, like, the real villains, you know, the actual humanoid villains, by which I mean the Disney villains.
And they are awesome. From the very beginning, like from Traverse Town, it cuts to like a council of them all sitting at one table, and my jaw just dropped when I saw this. All acting together, all sinister, all evil, and it doesn't. It at the time when you look at it, you're not saying, "Oh my God, this is funny, this is a joke." No, this is actually pretty serious. Like they actually play it up seriously.
Oh man, I let out the biggest fangirl squee when I first saw this. Because in addition to Disney having their own promotional chain of princesses, they also have their own promotional chain of villains. And there actually has been, you know, villain merchandise and themed clothes. And even they've even had events down at Disney World where, like, the bad guys would get together and take over Disney World. So in this case, they do it, but on a much larger scale. And it's really interesting to see how different villains interact with each other.
And how they play off each other, like the different motivations. Maleficent is mostly in charge because she's kind of the primary evil. She's evil for evil's sake. But then you have like Jafar, who's just greedy and wants a lot of things. You have Oogie Boogie, who's just in it for the fun. You have Captain Hook, who's doing it for revenge. Mm-hmm. And you can see all their different motivations working together. There are some that you don't see in the console that you'll find later, like Clayton, who's helped out by Heartless because he's not good enough to become a villain, and it's damn
really
right.
Isn't.
Yeah, he isn't really a villain in any sense. But it's really interesting to see these characters play off one another, and just to see them all in one place is simply awesome. We should talk a little bit about the combat mechanic and why this game works so well. It takes the typical, somewhat turn-based structure of Final Fantasy and kind of flips it on its head. I mean, you have the command system. You have the attack command, which is set to a certain button, and you have like item and magic commands, but it's all real time. You're all the enemies appear in real time, kind of like an action game, and you press a button to attack, and you're able to maneuver around and use your magic when you want to with a shortcut system. And it's so smooth. It flows so well. Like, you don't feel like you're playing a game. Even when you're grinding for levels, it's not that much of a chore. You're just kind of like plowing through them, and you're just like, I wish this was what Final Fantasy could have been like. I wish this is what Final Fantasy XII's battle system was like. That was ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is like a good old slash and beat 'em up. In that, you know, and it's not just from the side either. You see it from, like, all different angles, and you really feel like you're in the middle of a battle, just, you know, whooping these guys' asses, and just, you know, you feel every time you slash something, because, you know, because of the vibrating setting. But it's just so cool, you know, and it's so satisfying, just, you know, just beating up on these grunts and just, like, plowing through a room full of Heartless.
And...
Like, I would often do that, just, you know, if I was stressed or, you know, I need to get out aggression, I just play, like, a level and I'd be like, oh, yeah, take it.
And the progression system really works with it, too, because you start off and you have basic skills. You have a basic attack combo, and you can do some things with your sword. But as you go, like, you learn a dodge roll, and your combos increase. But more than that, you get different skills. You get the scan skill, which is so important. It reveals the enemy's health, so you can plan accordingly. Like, you can target different enemies and say, okay, I know how long it's going to take me to defeat this enemy. Lifesaver that skill. There's, different skills that allow you to hover after you visit Neverland, and high jump, and different abilities that make you feel like you're growing, not just as a person, as Sora grows, but as a character, as you can have a natural progression of how this character grows and is eventually able to overcome the darkness.
We should also talk about his two side characters, because of course this wouldn't be a Final Fantasy-esque game if there weren't side characters. And it's everyone's favorite characters, Donald and Goofy.
Mm-hmm. And they're on a mission. Donald got a letter from the king. The king, King Mickey, he went off to find what was going on because, a lot of stars were just going out. And that means, worlds were disappearing. Forgiving, of course, that stars are very different from worlds. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so stars were going out, and he left a letter saying, I'm going off to find, what's behind this. I'm going to see Ansem. And so it's up to Donald and Goofy to find the Keyblade wielder and follow the Keyblade. And so they go in, and at first it's really selfish reasons. Like, Donald is saying, we have to follow the Keyblade Master. We're not going to help him with stuff. And so you and Donald get in a lot of different arguments.
Yeah, because, he's typical Donald. Not much has changed. Like, the only real thing that's different is that in this game he's a wizard. So he actually knows magic, and he becomes like your mage, basically, for the game. And
healer. He deals crazy amounts of damage with his magic, but he can heal you as well, and that's a lifesaver before you get the heal spell. Mm-hmm.
And then Goofy is basically your muscle, your tank, because he attacks primarily with his shield because he's the captain of the guards, and he's usually not the confrontational type, so this makes sense for him. Mm-hmm. And but he does help in that he usually takes items, and he uses those items usually to heal the group.
And so you all work together as a cohesive unit, and you form these bonds together. And there's one point where your bonds are questioned, and another Keyblade is brought out. And so the question is, which Keyblade do they follow? And so I'm not going to spoil the moment for anyone, but there's a really big test of loyalty between these characters, and it pays off in a big way.
It makes you say, betrayal! One thing you should know about Don and Goofy as your combat assistants and fellow fighters, they kind of fluctuate in terms of their usefulness, as I've come to see. Because with Donald, like I said, he's your primary healer and magic user, and that's cool and all, except that unless you change the settings right away, he uses all of his magic in, like, the first 2 minutes of the battle. So, like, you're constantly having to, like, use ethers and stuff to fill up his magic so he can actually fight decently. And the same thing goes for Goofy, where, again, if you don't change the settings on him at the beginning, he will take every single item you give him, and he'll just use it all up in the first 2 minutes of the combat. Which is really annoying and really wasteful, especially if you're only fighting, like a handful of grunts that you can easily take out by yourself, and like just one hit, suddenly they're boom right there. They're healing you and throwing potions on you, and it's like, guys, relax.
But this is a primary example of what the Gambit system and Final Fantasy XII should have been, in the fact that you have control over these characters' actions, but you don't have to map out every single thing that they do.
Yeah, I found from people I talked to, some like it, some don't, because some people do like having the control over the side characters and everything that they do, so they don't, like I mentioned, waste magic or items unnecessarily. But at the same time, it is a bit of a relief that you don't have to, click on a billion different character screens just to, like, do one little action. Mm-hmm. So, and another thing that I should note is that in in this game particularly, Donald is very, very weak. Like, even later on. Like I said, his primary use is magic, and even if you do change the setting on him so that he only uses it, sparingly, he blows through it, and then his primary attacks are really not that effective, and he often gets knocked out the most out of everyone in the party.
And Goofy wouldn't get knocked out because, first of all, he has this shield, he has high defense, and then he has this really awesome moves where, like, he'll be the one to defeat the boss in Wonderland because he has this high jump move, and he gets a lot of really cool attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of the time, usually, I mean, I've done this, but usually a lot of my friends that played said that they always switch out Donald when they get the chance, because more than half the time when you go to a new world, you have the option of switching one of the main characters of that world in with your party. Like, you get Tarzan when you go to his world, you get Aladdin from Agrabah, Ariel from The Little Mermaid, Jack Skellington from Halloween Town, and so on and so forth. And usually I end up switching those characters out with Donald just because they're far more useful.
Mm-hmm. It can vary. Like, I didn't see a use for, what was the companion in Wonderland?
There actually is no companion in Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like, it's the first world, so it's kind of like a test run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like some of the worlds I didn't see as much use in it, but as you go on, yeah, the companions get better and better as you go, and so it's a nice mechanic, I think, to be able to switch out your party with someone from a familiar Disney world and be like, hey, I'm fighting alongside Aladdin. This is badass.
Well, in some worlds, it actually is essential to have the other characters in your party. Like, for instance, when you go to Agrabah and you go into the Cave of Wonders, there's a part where you have to go through these underwater caverns, and the only way to open up certain caverns is to touch this monkey jewel. But you can't reach it because you can't jump out of the water. And the only way you can do this is if you get Aladdin to call a boo who jumps up and touches it. So hence, Aladdin is essential to have in your party.
And they really tailor the worlds to the characters that it's centered around, and I found that really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool, because, I mean, the characters sometimes do question, why Sora and all these other, and Sora and Donald and Goofy are, like, there, because usually, depending on the world, they really stick out a whole lot. But generally, they tend to be really trusting. And, they don't really cause any problems, which is a good thing. I mean, once in a while you have a character that wants to tag along or, leave their world, which is a big no-no, even though that's essentially what the main three are doing. But for the most part, they're very compliant and very helpful.
Mm-hmm. I also like, later after you beat certain worlds and stuff, you can come back and there's certain secrets you can find. There's Trinity symbols where you can, if you have the right ability, you can have Sora, Donald, and Goofy use this symbol called a Trinity mark, and you can do a crazy move to find something hidden there.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the fetch quests and, the gathering quests, some of them can be pretty useful, like collecting certain items and bringing them back to Traverse Town, where you give the items to the Moogles, and if you have the right amount, they actually craft new items for you, like certain rings that give you extra abilities or up your stats, and in some case they even make you a brand new weapon, which is really cool.
Like the ultimate weapon?
Yeah, they make you the ultimate weapon, which is, the best weapon you can get in that game. But of course it requires a lot of patience on your part.
There's even a hidden ending that you can find if you get if you seal every world, excluding Monstro, but you have to seal Winnie the Pooh's world as well.
Oh yeah, you get to go in the Winnie the Pooh world. I love that world.
Yay! And Winnie the Pooh is kind of a series of mini games, and it is fun. I think they did it better in the sequel, but it's nice seeing Pooh. It's a really fun world.
Yeah, and it's kind of a relief, because if you go to a world where, you just go through a bajillion Heartless battles, and, you know, you can't even step into the main area without getting attacked. It is really nice to be able to go to a world like Winnie the Pooh, where it's basically just puzzles, and you can just, you know, go around at your leisure and explore. Plus, you know, they keep playing that theme song over and over again, and I love it.
So you seal every world. You don't need to seal Monstro, because that's technically not a world.
It's a whale. A giant fucking whale.
You have to find all 101 Dalmatians, and then at the end of the game, I think there's another thing you have to do, but at the end of the game you get the secret ending, which is a teaser for Kingdom Hearts 2, and it is epic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and another little cool tidbit is when you start learning magic and, you know, all the usual spells, you know, fire, ice, thunder, all that, you actually get summon spells. And these summon spells come in the form of Disney characters, which is awesome. Like, you get Simba from The Lion King, you get Genie from Aladdin, you get Bambi, and you get Tinkerbell. And I think there's one more. Oh, yeah, Mushu from Milan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Dumbo.
And Dumbo. They're all really useful in a different way, and they do different things, which can help you out in battle. Personally, my favorite was Tinkerbell because, you know, constant healing.
Yeah, I mean, the only downside with the summon spells is that you can't use Donald or Goofy during the fight because you pretty much are taking their magic and adding it to your own in order to summon these characters. And, like I said, it only lasts for a certain period, and the only time you can really use this is, you know, when you're in the middle of a big Heartless fight. It's really not recommended if you do this with a boss, just because you need all the extra amount of magic and everything that you can get for those battles.
Mm-hmm. And so there's also different versions of this game. In Japan, they came out with Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, which is the same game, only they put in extra boss fights and extra, like, hidden bits to get you ready for Kingdom Hearts 2. And unfortunately, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix and Kingdom Hearts Final Mix Plus, which is the Kingdom Hearts 2, those only came out in Japan, which is unfortunate because, you know, there's a lot of story stuff that we don't get to see. It's not essential knowledge, but it's really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. People that you get to fight and you get to meet. So I wish that would come to America at some point, hopefully.
It would be cool.
Mm-hmm. There was also a Kingdom Hearts manga. I don't know how long it went on, but from what I saw, it was pretty enjoyable.
I've seen it, and I thought it was okay, but it's nothing that made me want to continue reading. I mean, the artwork in itself is kind of odd. It's like a little bit too cartoony for my taste. But the characters, you know, they're themselves, and, you know, they do what they do best. It's just, I don't know, it never really appealed to me.
It does feel a little bit like just a retread of playing the game, but for people who hadn't played the game, I thought it was pretty good.
I guess.
Get people to play the game. Because, you know, this was a really well-selling game. It sold quite a bit of copies, but I think the more people who know about how good this game is, the better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's an overabundance of cosplayers that do a good job of letting people know that.
Speaking of cosplayers, I'm one of them. If you've ever seen that cloaked figure in any one of my videos, yeah, that was from Kingdom Hearts.
Nerd!
Yeah, I really love this series, and I enjoy dressing up as a guy in a black cloak. It's fun, and, you know, some people don't like cosplaying and whatnot, but I really think that it helps bring you further into the world of the game. And it brings you into company with people who really enjoy the world of the game.
Yeah, a lot of the times when I talk to other Kingdom Hearts fans, some of them, like, they like the game, but they actually like the story and the characters even more.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, it's like they'll focus more on, you know, what the characters are up to, what they would do in certain worlds, and so on and so forth. I mean, the game is good, like we said, but it's really the story that makes it shine. Because seriously, it's like the ultimate crossover. Like the crossover that we all imagined ourselves doing when we were kids. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to, hop through all their favorite Disney films and meet those characters? And, fight alongside them. 'Cause, like, that's
It's like
awesome.
a fanboy dream.
Mm-hmm. It's like a fanfic done right. So yeah, two things I wanted to talk about though in terms of this game. Well, the game, like we said, is really good. There are two things that rather annoyed me about it. Feel free to disagree or not. The one thing is the Colosseum in the Hercules world. That stage always rather annoyed me. I know it's like ultimately it's essential to get through, especially if you want to lock the world or you want to gain certain weapons or abilities and everything, but for me it was like very arduous, very repetitive, because you were basically going through multi-stages of like the same thing over and over again, just with slightly stronger creatures. And like I said, like it gets really tedious, especially when you hear Sora say over and over again, "That's the power of the Keyblade." It's like,
No.
I want to punch that guy in the face sometimes. It's like, shut up! Just get me to the next level, quick.
Now, I'm going to have to disagree here. I really loved the Colosseum, and yes, Sora's little quips at the end did get annoying, but some of the battles in it were really cool. You get to fight Sephiroth. You get to fight the Ice Titan and the Rock Titan. You get to fight Cloud and Tifa and a bunch of these people, and not Tifa, Yuffie. You get to fight Yuffie, and so these group fights really were awesome. And while yes, it did kind of get a little bit repetitive in terms of the other fights, the best cup was the Hades Cup. And near like the top tier, you had some like really cool matches where they didn't tell you how many people or how many enemies you were fighting at once, and it would just put in some random things, or you'd be fighting two versions of a boss you've already beaten earlier in the game. And I thought that was very interesting. Like, you don't know how many people you're facing, so they just keep popping up. And it starts off with weaker enemies, but then you fight, like, Dark Balls, which are, like, one of the later enemies in the game, and there's, like, infinite amounts of them, and I thought that was interesting.
I don't know, just, it really annoyed me, especially because, if you died on a level, it sent you straight back to the beginning, and, like, it didn't even say, you don't even get the experience that you earned during that time. You kind of have to start right over.
Well, in certain cups, like the Hades Cup, you can start every 10 levels.
Yeah, that's true, but it's really annoying because even if it does start you from like the last 10th of a level that you died on, if you spend a whole lot of time on one particular level only to die on the next one and then have to go back and do it all over again, that's infuriating.
I can understand that. I think it can work both ways. I think some people will really like it and some people won't. But I do think it's much better than the Hades arena in the second game. I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, me neither.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it didn't leave as much of an impact, but like I said, I really don't care for it in general, just because it's, like I said, so repetitive. Mm-hmm. And what was it? Another thing that annoyed me was that you couldn't even go into your inventory at any time to get potions and stuff that you had already picked up, like, beforehand. Like, it doesn't let you do that at all. You just have to equip yourself and everyone else with the potions that they have, and just hope to God that they use it sparingly up until the last match. For me, that was really annoying.
Then again, there is also the whole healing spell. I rely on the healing spell. I put that shortcut to X. I'm just like, nope. I don't care if you heal me. Heal yourselves. I'm going to use my heal. So.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to talk about, this didn't really annoy me, but I always found it as a really sort of useless thing that they put in the game, is the whole gummy ship design program.
Okay, this is something I can agree with you on.
Yeah, because one thing we didn't discuss before is that the way transport yourself to other lands and worlds and everything is that you have something called a gummy ship, something that Donald and Goofy first get when they leave their kingdom, and then you pretty much just pilot it from then on out. And it's really slow and monotonous at first because as you're flying from one world to the other, you encounter all these, I guess, heartless ships that keep trying to, like, kill you, and there's all these obstacles and stuff that are apparently floating out in the middle of space, which, you know, if you smash into, causes your ship to become damaged.
It's basically an on-rails shooter to break up in between worlds, but it becomes incredibly pointless because, you know, you can upgrade your ship and you can make it better, but you have to get all these gummy blocks, and it's not really worth it. Your beginning ship can get through most levels, and what is completely infuriating about it is you have to do it to get to every single world. There's no fast travel.
Yeah, I mean, eventually after you get to a majority of the worlds, you find a warp gummy, which is able to instantly transport you to any world without going through all of that, you know, ship fighting crap and so on. But in the meantime, whenever you do visit a new world, you have to go through all of that. And of course you pick up all of these items and stuff, like these different gummies and these different, like, designs and stuff. And you can actually go back to Traverse Town, talk to Sid, who will then go over blueprints with you, and you could design your own ship. But it's confusing, and it's ultimately pointless, because it has nothing to do with the story. It doesn't really, like, help your ship that much, aside from maybe giving it better firepower. But, I mean, I never did any of that. I just got the standard upgrades and just, you know, flew the ship straight on through everything. Mm-hmm. And I never had a problem. So
there's something telling about the fact that you can ultimately put the game down, like pull the controller down for the time you're going through a world, and you maybe just press X once or twice, and you win.
Pretty much. Yeah, just, for me, like, it was annoying just because of how they kept thrusting all this stuff in your face, and how sometimes you would go through this really complicated battle, and all you would get out of it was, like, a gummy block, something you would never, ever use. So I just really felt it was stupid, and I'm really glad that they got rid of all of that in the sequel and just made it a straightforward, you know, flying thing.
They actually made it fun in the sequel, and we may talk about that at a later date. But yeah, the gummy sequence is ultimately pointless and tedious.
Was there any other annoyances about the game for you?
Ursula? No, really. Like, there wasn't really anything else I disliked about the game. There are certain bosses that are challenging and whatnot, but other than those minor things, I think this is one of the near perfect game experiences.
Okay. Is that a few irritations for me here and then, but they've corrected it in the sequels, and it's become much better for it. So ultimately, the complaints, you know, the creators already know about it, and they've fixed it, so it's no big deal.
Now, the last thing we should really talk about here, and the biggest thing about the game that really sets it apart and that really defines it, apart from the story, the story is amazing, but the music, oh my god, the music is phenomenal. I can't stress this enough. The music is one of the best parts of the game, better than the awesome gameplay, better than the awesome characters. It really defines this game as such a work of art, and I think this is the best thing that Disney has done in modern day with a video game music.
That is so true. I mean, because when I first saw the commercial on the VHS and the VHS tape I talked about, that I heard that song and I could not get it out of my head. Like, I only knew like one or two verses which they had played during it, but it was stuck. It kept going, and then when I finally got the game and I listened to the beginning, I'm just like, whoa.
And both the English version and the Japanese version of the opening theme is composed and performed by Hikaru Utada, and she's amazing. Both of these versions sound so very similar, and both of them are very good in their own right. The Japanese version is called Hikari, and the English version is Simple and Clean, and they represent what this entire thing is about. It's almost like the composer knew what was happening in the story, and she's just like, okay, I'm going to make a song that resonates with everything that's going on. And it really does. You get a real emotional response from just really listening to the lyrics and stuff that's going on. And I thoroughly love this song.
Mhm. Yeah, even the background music they do for certain worlds is really fitting. Like, with certain worlds, obviously they don't have the real, they don't have the songs that really stick out and define it. Like say for Halloween Town, they have This Is Halloween, and of course that does play through it, but it's played subtly. And,
and
it's
a little bit slower too.
Mm-hmm. And then other worlds like Hercules or Tarzan or Alice in Wonderland, they have it doesn't resemble any song from them, but it's really fitting and it really sets up the atmosphere. And they even have their own unique music change for whenever there's a battle.
There's also one of my favorite background songs is Traverse Town. And it's just it seems like everything's all fine and dandy in the shops, and it's do 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 do, and it's all happy and upbeat, and then you get into the battle and it changes. And I think the music direction of this game is so amazing. Not to mention that at the end of the game, there's a slow version of Simple and Clean, and it is brilliant. It really pulls at your heartstrings. It's nice and slow. It fits with the credits, and it fits with the emotional tone at the end of the game.
Yeah, because when I first heard it at the beginning, because it's much faster, I did kind of question the lyrics and the overall tone, because it's obvious this is supposed to be some sort of love song, but at the beginning they have Sora basically falling through infinity and all these sort of action sequences, and I'm thinking, wow, these lyrics don't really fit. But then by the end of it, when they have that tearful goodbye scene and everything, I just it fits so perfectly, and it sort of made the game come full circle, and I absolutely loved it.
So, if overall, what do you think of Kingdom Hearts 1 as just as a game and as a Disney product?
I absolutely love it. I think this is one of the smartest moves Disney has ever done in terms of bringing new media and new characters to light to their fan base, because it's obvious that they had people who knew what they were doing. They knew that in order to attract a wider fan base, they had to appeal to both old and new people of all ages, and do it in a game format that would be playable for even non-gamers to play, like me. And it's actually one of the perfect starter games for a lot of people, because you can easily pick up the controller and just start playing, and you get better and you feel the accomplishment, and the story is just so good and so immersive, and the characters are just so likable. It's if you didn't have the gaming format, this would be an amazing movie. And personally, I hope that at some point they do make this into a movie, because it would be really, really cool.
Overall, I completely agree. This is one of my top games. I can't really do a ranking because there are a lot of games I love, but this is very close to my heart. It shaped the way I thought about gaming. This and Final Fantasy X were very adamant in saying, okay, these are what games can be. This is how good a video game can be, and it raised my standards, from Enter the Matrix to something like this. So, this is what I consider one of the standards for a great Japanese RPG. Also, it had a lot of good things in place. They had a lot of great voice actors. James Woods comes back to voice Hades. They had a lot of the original voice cast from the movies. Some worlds they couldn't, obviously, because they were older games, but they really sound like their counterparts. The dialogue might be a little bit stilted at times, but still, it has such a charm to it, and the actors really get into their roles pretty quickly, so that it doesn't feel out of place, and it feels like you're on such a fantastic journey, and such a big journey that's beyond you, that's beyond like any normal game. You're saving not just one world, you're saving every world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend this game to everybody. Both experienced gamers and new gamers alike, because this is definitely something to be played. And
Mm-hmm.
Even if not just for the gameplay, just to watch it, because my siblings have actually watched me play this game many times, and they are fans of it just through watching it. That is how much of an impact this game has.
It's such the animation is so good for its time. It may look a little bit dated, but when it first came out, it was amazing. It was cutting edge in terms of that. It was cutting edge in terms of storytelling, and it does a lot of things right. And there's some things that we won't spoil for you. We want you to go out and play this game, if only just to see another great thing produced by Disney and by Square Enix.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this has been the 25th episode of the Disney Debate.
Yay! I can't believe we lasted this long.
And here's to 25 more.
25,000 more.
It's over 9,000.
What, 9,000?
That's impossible.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, all of you out there. Ned, Morgan, just everyone who's watching out there. Thank you very much for your support and everything. We would not be where we are today without your help. So
yes, thank you very much. We love you guys. You're all awesome. And we hope you continue to follow us for many episodes to come.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the next episode, the next episode we're kind of diving into obscure territory here, because we're going through a bit of a hiatus from the cartoon format. Because at this point, cartoons for Disney are starting to become a little harder to produce, a little bit, more obscure, and he at this point, Disney is kind of like immersing himself in the live-action stuff, because, it's ultimately cheaper to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the next episode we have is another English-based film. It's called The Sword and the Rose.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those Disney films where you probably haven't heard of it.
Yeah, because this is done by the same people who did Treasure Island and The Story of Robin Hood and His Merry Men. So, again, it's another all-British cast. And it's supposed to supposedly based on a real event, but I'm not quite sure. But like I said, we're going to be diving into a lot of obscure stuff. So, just bear through with us. We'll do our best, find the humor in it, give our critiques, and do what we usually do best.
We'll try to make it as interesting as possible. If it's The Reluctant Dragon, or So Dear to My Heart, or the other horrible stuff that we've reviewed so far, then we'll be angry at it. But we'll try to make it entertaining for you guys. Mm-hmm. But until then, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Disney Debate. If you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, or Disney movie suggestions that don't fall under main Disney canon, but are produced by Disney, or other Disney products that we could cover in special episodes, then please leave comments in the comments thread, or you can follow us at twitter.com/ZenithRule, twitter.com/FMTRabbit, or you can follow us at Facebook at facebook.com/ZenithRule and facebook.com/CatMac. Or you can check out our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/TheDisneyDebate, and you can sign up and follow all our Disney posts, and put up lots of Disney goodness, because we want to hear more about Disney from you guys. We like interaction with you guys. I am Zenith Rule.
And I am Kat Mac /FromTRabbit/CatTCritic.
And this has been the 25th episode. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching the Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on the Media Meltdown.